strategy and policy is extremely difficult. It's really difficult because most organizations are not set up to really detect skills internally. The number of HR managers is not sufficient to interview every single people every week to understand what skills they have and what skills they need to develop. So really organizations today are looking at technology to help them better detect skills. However, using technology to detect skills is still very difficult. Most machine learning and artificial intelligence data tools resided on existing data, career data, and this career data is very difficult to understand because each skill is made of multiple synonyms. Most data you find on the web or available in organizations is very much incomplete. When you have and put together your resume, you don't necessarily always mention your skills, you may mainly mention your experience. And even in HR systems and organizations, the data is pretty much incomplete. And then additionally, skills are constantly evolving. Some skills are becoming irrelevant, others are becoming more and more relevant. So all that is changing and moving all the time. This means that really there was a need to obviously develop a whole new technology and taxonomy to better manage skills. And that's what we've been doing in the last 5 years through a company that we bought, Clustery, and that we integrated within our own technology. We've been able to put together the Cornerstone skills graph, which really offers organizations the ability to have a complete skills framework. So that means when you start using the technology, you're able to provide your employees with an easy way to detect the skills they currently have and the skills they want to develop. And it's what we call universal. So we believe that our framework is absolutely able to address any industry with actually more than 53,000 common and verified skills. And this was done and built out of a very wide source of data that we've built in the last 5 to 6 years. The other interesting piece is that we've been able to correlate skills one with another. So that means it's not just a list of skills, but we're also able to identify whether a skill is close enough to another skill, meaning that typically if you have skill A, then you're probably very much expected to have skills B, C, and D. So it helps us better help employees identify the skills they currently have, and also the skills that would make sense for them to even be more productive in their current job. We also offer a multilingual skill set and offer the ability for people to add new skills. We know that this is a very much changing world. So we know that skills may evolve, may become more relevant. So we really want to allow organizations to better identify new skills that are even more relevant for their industry today. And the system is able to learn, meaning that typically as skills evolve and as people detect new skills, we're able to ensure that the suggestions and recommendations are dynamically updated. Now, how can that be concretely used by organization? And what's the actual use case? Really, our vision is that skills will be at the heart of any people development strategy. So that means when you hire, when you develop people, when you set up their training, when you also present them with future opportunities, all of this should be at some point pretty much skills-based. So our vision is really to embed our skills graph and skills engine within the whole of the Cornerstone suite, so that recruiters can get recommendations on which candidates are the best fit, so that people who are hired get immediate recommendations on the skills they're missing to be 100% productive. And so that also when managers assess their employees, they have recommendations around the skills that they should be developing and working on with their employees. And finally, employees can be presented with career paths that can be really the most relevant based on the skills they've acquired in the last few years and the skills that are relevant for the positions they aspire to. Now, immediately, what can you get from it? Well, with using systems like Cornerstone, you can get really very concrete applications and use cases. What we often see organizations moving to is much more frequent feedback and interactions and conversations type situations, moving from a once-a-year performance review to something that is much more regular. So that's why we've developed a functionality in Cornerstone called check-ins. And we've made skills really the heart of that functionality, so that when an employee and a manager talk together on a regular basis, They can obviously discuss on what are the job challenges and what are the areas that the employee can improve on. But the system can also highlight some of the skills that can help the employee better reach his objectives. And we've also tied this to relevant training so that whenever skills are identified, employees can get visibility with their manager on the actual development actions and training that can be really relevant to fill in those gaps. So how does this look like? And let me illustrate it right away in the system. Let's say that I'm Harry, I am a customer service rep, and I might have joined recently the Cornerstone organization. The first thing I might be invited to do is really fill in my profile, update it with the latest projects I've been working on, ensuring that I'm actually really updated on the whole experience and that everything is really set up in the right way. Now, waiting for it to load, I can then, once the system has given me and has taken into account all of the existing historical information and my summary with the fact that I'm certified IT project manager, that I may have filled in also my CV with all of the relevant experience. All of this information is picked up by our skills engine to identify what are the skills that are the most relevant. And Harry can be presented right away with a skills area where he can identify the skills that he wants to develop, the skills that he already may have, and other skills that he's not identified yet that could be relevant for him. So for instance, as someone who works in the IT space, Amazon Web Service could absolutely be a relevant skill. So I can decide to—
Matthieu, a quick question.
Sure.
Are you trying to demonstrate your application now? Because as we only see your presentation.
Yeah, let me try it again, as it seems it didn't switch correctly. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. We solved it.
Exactly. So let me reshare.
Looks great.
Does it work this way? Yeah. Do you see my skills screen?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, perfect. Great. So coming back rapidly, I'm actually Harry here, customer service rep. What I showed just previously was how Harry could update his resume and profile, and all of his resume and profile has been automatically taken into account so that Harry can see all of these skills that he might have that he can actually work on. So for instance, the AWS skill that he can decide to add to his profile or that he can identify as wanting to develop. And then other skills that he may already have. Now these skills, he can reference them in his profile. He can have access to the full description of the skill, but also get feedback from his manager, his peers, to be rated in the relevant fashion. Now, how can Harry actually use these skills to further develop? Well, as part of the Cornerstone system, I can absolutely use this to base my check-ins on. So Harry typically reports to Ella, his manager, and he has a weekly check-in that allows him and Ella to discuss the current progress on my work, on my projects, on my goals. I can absolutely interact with Ella in the right way, review my goals and objectives that have been assigned to me. But at any time, I can also pull in the skills that are relevant for me. So I can discuss with my manager, with Ella, what are the skills that I need to use to reach my objectives, but also potentially identify some of the skills that I need to further advance on and maybe find the relevant training. And that means with a tool like Cornerstone, you can absolutely tie skills to training. This can be either content that we provide as a subscription, a bit like a Netflix type approach, where you can actually subscribe to what we call our content anytime approach. And we've tagged this content with the skills taxonomy. Or you can also include your own learning activities, your own content, and tag them with the skills that are important for you. So this ensures that really development is at the heart of the employee and manager's conversation. And all this is really driven by skills. We also use this as a way to better detect skills within organizations. So as soon as you start having employees identify the skills on their profile, you can access to a number of reports, visualization that allow you to understand where the skills sit and deploy the right skills strategy. Now, a few additional typical items that we highlight in order to cover the skills aspects. So obviously the skills taxonomy is based on understanding Harry's resume, Harry's bio, but also Harry's job title. And starting with a job title is a great way to start with this type of skills technology. Now, it's very important when you look at a skills engine to make sure that it's able to understand job titles in the right way. It's really important because it's typically the first type of data that employees will fill in. And usually job titles are not one size fits all. So some skills engine available on the market tend to normalize job titles. This was not our approach. We really built a skills graph out of 750 million job titles. And we know that even with that number, we're not able to cover all job titles available on the market. So that's why we developed what we call a deep learning tool that allows us to understand really any type of job title. So whatever the complexity of the job title, we're really able to identify a number of associated skills. And just to give you an illustration, I've put together this short example where for certain job titles that are specific to some industry, such as the BIM consultant, we're actually able to predict the relevant skills. The number you see up there is how relevant the skill is to the corresponding job title. And then all of the other skills are the other potential relevant skills for that potential job title. So that means really whatever the industry we're looking at, we're really able to highlight the skills that are the most relevant. Now, the other piece is we also offer a completely universal skills taxonomy. So that means we're really able to address any industry. And we've been able to do that really because we offer 53,000 normalized skills. These are also available in multiple languages. And what we've done is not only translated the skills, but also taken into account the cultural aspect, because we know that certain skills are not translated word by word in certain languages. We also have the framework to make the skills available in other languages as well. So currently, obviously, a key question is the taxonomy available in Dutch? A lot of our data is actually based on Dutch resumes and Dutch data. Our taxonomy is not yet to the point where we can offer a sufficient 100% Dutch-based taxonomy, but we're actually working on it and ensuring that once you start, with the English level of the taxonomy, you can move on to a Dutch-based taxonomy. The other interesting piece is we can also take into account skills proximity. So that means as soon as you start identifying a skill on your profile, the system can easily identify skills that are close enough, and so that I refine my development in the right way. Now, one of the interesting pieces as well in these types of technologies that very often in your resume or in your profile, you might have a lot of words that mean something in a certain context, but not in another context. And a lot of engines, unfortunately, present skills that are absolutely irrelevant. I was testing out an engine recently where I was entering a resume around more really of an IT system specialist. And for some reason, the engine picked up some crazy skills like boots, leather, and other types of shoes and apparels, and also some very detailed medical skills. And the reason some engines do that is that they sometimes don't take rid of the noise. Some words which mean something in certain contexts, but not really anything in another context. What we're able to do with our skills graph is we're absolutely able to take into account the context of the profile. So that means that if, for instance, you identify the ELISA skill as a lab analyst, the system is able to pick it up. But if, as a recruiter, I've worked on a project called ELISA, the system will recognize that it's a project and that it's not a skill. And that type of filtering can be done in the system. We can also identify the seniority and intensity, which means that if I've occupied a job title for 10 years, we're able to weigh the skill in the appropriate fashion. And also if the skill is very important to a position and not to another, we're also able to take that into account. So all that ensures that when you identify and detect skills on a profile, we really come up with a relevant list of skills. Now, lastly, obviously, very importantly, what's in it for the employee? If you put together this type of skills engine, Obviously, it's great to detect skills on people, but how will they see any benefit for them in terms of why should they actually, go in the system, update their bio, update their resume? And so it's very important to ensure that employees find an advantage in surfacing their skills. Now, obviously, just having the system to detect skills is still very useful for an employee per se. An employee might identify skills that he didn't think about and that he should be developing, but it also needs to align with the employee's career aspirations. And that's why typically we are working on a tool that will better help employees identify future positions based on their existing and future skills. So the idea is based on the skills that I currently have. The system can tell me what positions are for the future are the best match. And also specifically, what skills do I miss in order to take those future positions? So we'll be providing that type of feature in 2021. And what we also already offer is the ability to do learning object and content analysis. So that means as soon as you set up learning activities in Cornerstone, we can tag skills on those learning activities and surface them to employees so that once they've detected skills that they need to develop, the system can recommend the relevant training. Now, last item I do want to highlight, and this comes up a lot with our organizations, we know that there are a number of common and shared skills throughout any industry, and that's why we've come up with the normalized skills. But we also know that certain industries are very specific and that you might need to either tailor the skills library or also include your own specific skills. And it's very important to know that you can absolutely ensure that Cornerstone takes that into account, meaning that once you've started using the Cornerstone skills graph, you can use and leverage the original clustery skills taxonomy, but you can also include your own skill sets. And you can also tailor the existing original list. So if you feel some skills would be worded better in a better way, you can absolutely edit those as well. What is interesting is that as soon as you start building up and adding your own skills, the system is still able to automatically pick up those skills and tie them to the original skills taxonomy. So for instance, we have a skill called leadership in our existing taxonomy. But let's say we work in the retail space and we have a specific retail customer who has their own way to manage leaders, and they call it retail specific leadership. They can add that skill and the system can tie that skill to the original leadership skill from the standard taxonomy. And so that means that whoever was recommended with the leadership skill will also be recommended the additional retail specific leadership skill, and the training recommendations will also be recommended in a relevant fashion. So it ensures that you have the best of both worlds, leveraging an existing standardized, verified skill set, but also being able to upload and update with your own specific views on skills. And the system will absolutely learn on those different skills. A few additional screenshots on how this is being leveraged to end users. We'll provide ways to better recommend skills based on training, better make skills part of the whole learning experience. So you can ensure that whenever you start developing yourself in Cornerstone, the system nudges you to update your skills, and quick visualization on what our 2021 career pathing visualization will be like. I will be, as an employee, able to visualize positions that are relevant for me, see the relevant career paths, and then identify the matching jobs with the relevant weighing, and finally, the gaps and the skills that are needed to successfully apply to that job. So that makes it very interesting for an employee to really identify specifically the skills he needs to fill in to successfully apply to that position. You can then surface this within this check-ins area, understand what skills he needs to develop in order to apply successfully for that position, and ensure that really everything is done in a streamlined fashion. And we'll offer additional newer type development tools so that once I've identified skills that are relevant for me, I can kind of subscribe to those skills and have content delivered to me on a regular fashion. So we really provide a unified solution around not only skills identification, but also development and training that's associated to those skills I want to develop. Okay, I think I went through the main aspects I wanted to share today. Happy to keep a few minutes for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Matthieu, for now. I have a couple of questions. One of them is that it's coming from the audience, that is, are all skills scaled? Like 1 to 10 or novice to expert, or how is it somewhere rated or graded or whatever?
Yes, very good point. So typically in our backend, we have a score out of 100. However, we surface it to companies on a completely configurable rating scale. So you can say whether it's out of 5, out of 10, out of 15, and you can do that with either self-rating or peer rating. And it's typically when I've identified a skill on my profile, I can ask my manager or my peers to rate me, and the result is available in the system.
Okay. So who do you see as your prime user of the system?
Yes, so very interesting point. So typically from 2 angles. First of all, in terms of industry, we pretty much can address any type of industry. We have traditional private sector, public sector, also nonprofits as well. The skills that we're able to cover are really industry-wide. And we have very large customers on these topics, but also smaller ones. So really it's a variety of types of customers. The end users themselves, now what is interesting is because historically we are a very much employee-focused system. You can actually put this really in the hands of employees and managers, but we're also working on a set of dashboards and analytics so that HR can analyze where skills are, where skills reside, and get access to the right reporting as well.
Okay, because company formats are changing, the way they're working, that you see that especially the role of the manager is changing, and maybe even the role of manager is not even there anymore, and people tend to be more and more self-steering. So do you see that the employee is the ultimate customer in this way?
Yes, the initial use case and the initial way we deploy the system is very much employee driven. As you've seen, my Harry profile is really the central core user here, and he's the employee. And what we want is, and we know that these types of approaches are successful if employees see the advantage and the benefit for them. So we really develop features that are, first of all, employee focused, so they can be in the driving seat. Same approach for career pathing, right? Where in the past we had a lot of customers going for centralized company-defined career paths. Now we know that this is much more employee-driven, and people might want to switch from completely opposite type of positions. And that's our idea around this kind of AI-driven career pathing functionality that we're working on.
Is it like now when during the pandemic people tend to change careers, maybe even more than they plan to? Do you see that there's different kind of use now of the system?
Yeah, so we're still in an early stage in the way people are using the system. What we can view is that we have a tool called the Data Playground that allows us to really analyze how our skills framework is being used. And what we notice is that when we generate career paths, we're able to actually view from one position what other position it leads to. And sometimes it's very surprising, the positions that are correlated one with another. It's cool. It's pretty amazing. And yeah, we see that trend increasing as well.
Yeah. So can you in somehow see some trends on what's happening, how careers are changing, and will that be public information? Will there be reports on that?
So we are, right now, it's a tool that we use internally to make sure that we also maintain the taxonomy in the right way. There are a lot of underlying reasons as well. For instance, we want to take out any bias out of our recommendations. Very, very big topic. You don't want the system to take into account gender-based career paths or others. So that's why we use this type of data playground. But we are also thinking about providing such visibility to our customers and providing them similar tools so they can analyze their own data as well, and potentially also benchmark around certain industries.
Okay, cool. That's especially the discrimination part is interesting, because that's a hot topic, and that's right to be such a serious topic. Because...
Absolutely, and it's an important thing to highlight. The quick story is that the founder of Clustery, the company we built and we purchased, was a lady, Benedict. So it was at the heart of our bias. The bias was at the heart of our strategy as well. So the way we consolidated data, taking out any gender or race, obviously, aspects, or even the picture was taken out. Obviously, we don't want to take that data into account, but also the way we built our algorithms ensure that this aspect is taken into account.
Ah, nice. So, we are running out of time. One more last question in that way. If people are interested in using Cornerstone, how does it work implementation-wise? Do you do it yourself? Do you use local partners for that?
So generally, we absolutely work with partners more in most times. Now, what is interesting with this feature for customers who already use Cornerstone, it's extremely easy to activate. It's just almost a tick in the box. And I would then recommend really people to start using it as soon as possible, because the system can start running right away. And for new customers, note that Cornerstone is very simple to implement as well. Fully software as a service, only configuration based, and we have a number of partners who can help you out as well.
And the users are well trained on each level how to use it.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. Very easy to use, so almost minimal training too.
Yeah, cool. Matthieu, thank you so much for this really interesting talk and demonstration of the application. Really cool. Voor de kijkers, dank jullie wel voor het kijken. We hebben de hele dag en de rest van de week nog meerdere webinars. Dus jullie zijn van harte welkom om over een half uurtje, 11:30 de volgende sessie weer bij te wonen. Op het moment dat we deze sessie afsluiten, volgen nog 2 vragen. Het verzoek om daar nog even een antwoord op te geven. Want wij vinden het altijd fijn om te horen of jullie het net zo leuk vonden als ik, bij wijze van spreken. En in ieder geval dank voor het kijken en tot de volgende sessie om 11:30. Matthieu, encore merci. Au revoir.
Merci, au revoir.